This is the crown jewel, Mr. Good as Gold. This is Connor Hopkins.
I am Eric S. Knight.
And I'm a league champion.
And we are the chosen prodigal sons, and this is the Shotgun Wrestling Radio podcast.
What's up, everybody? It's Leon King here, of course, the baddest of the baddest, and you are now listening to Shotgun Wrestling Radio.
This is Gavin Parker, and you're listening to Shotgun Wrestling Radio.
This is the mechanic Big Beasley, and you are listening to Shotgun Wrestling Radio.
This is your deathmatch daddy Bo guy, and you're watching Shotgun Wrestling Radio.
Welcome, everybody, to another edition of Shotgun Wrestling Radio. I'm your host, Zach Takis, and we are continuing our Road to the Hall of Fame weekend series here. And this week, we have another guest lined up for this show, and it's going to be very interesting guest that a lot of Iowa wrestling fans might not have heard of. When you saw the match announcement get announced, I'm sure a lot of you guys went, huh? And that's why we have him on the show here tonight. He's the son of one of the referees in the World Wrestling Entertainment, Jason Ayers, and I'm talking about the one and only Rhys Maddox is joining me here tonight. And Rhys, for your first debut in Iowa, man, dude, you got a tough assignment here against someone who is legendary in the Iowa wrestling scene, the one and only Matty Star.
I very much do have a tough challenge ahead of me, a large mountain hard to climb. You know, I've known Matty for pretty much my whole life. It was a few years back. I think he took me to WrestleMania, if I remember correctly. I've known him forever. And if there's one thing that I do know about him, it's that he does not quit. And this match is going to be super hard. But I think I could do it, and as long as the fans think I could do it, and I know I can do it, then I can do it.
Well, and again, Matty, you know, he's just a legend in the Iowa wrestling scene. I've been going to Iowa wrestling shows since about 2005, and I think Matty's been there ever since. So he's been going at this quite some time, and I was just reminded a couple years ago at this very same show, he had the opportunity to face the Ultimo Dragon. So he has some experience there, with facing quite the long laundry list of legends in this business. Now let's kind of learn a little bit more about you, man. Obviously, your dad being a referee in the biggest wrestling company in the world, was that where your love of wrestling came from? Was your dad, or how did you discover the love of pro wrestling, man?
Very much so. You know, I've lived in Florida essentially my entire life. So growing up, I was able to go to a lot of the NXT events, and my aunt actually is one of the main reasons that I've fallen in love with wrestling, because that late 2019 NXT era I was able to go pretty much every week to those shows. So watching those made me really fall in love with this. And then through COVID, and then after COVID, watching WrestleMania 38 when Cody Rhodes returned really just sucked me right back in. And a year later, I started training.
And yeah, man, let's start right about that. You know, when you 2019 era, for those who don't remember, that was like what many people call the golden era for NXT. If I remember right, that's when you had like the guys like the Undisputed Era, Adam Cole and all those dudes. You had who's now known as FTR, the Revival. You had Samoa Joe down there. You had Bobby Roode, Shinsuke Nakamura. I mean, that was just legit what some call the golden era for NXT. So I can definitely see why you fell in love with this. So when it finally came time for you to decide, hey, you want to do this for a living, how did you go about picking the training school? Obviously, your dad knows all the right connections, but how did you go about, just finding the right school for you?
So we're eyeing a few of the Florida schools because, there's Devon Dudley School, there's Flatbacks, but then we got put eyes onto we got put in touch, with the HOC, the House of Champions. And me and my mom went to their open house because when we were looking into them, they hadn't even opened yet. We went to their open house, and their facility is phenomenal. They have a full gym, they have a full recovery zone with cold plunge sauna. They have a 20-foot by 20-foot professional wrestling ring. It's open. As long as you're a member, you're able to go whenever you want to get extra ring time, to use the recovery zone, to use the gym, to whatever you want. And anyone watching wants to come check it out. First class is always free if you're in Central Florida.
So when you finally got to your first day of training, man, what surprised you the most? I mean, I always love asking this question because I feel like everybody has a different reaction. And yeah, again, what's the one thing that surprised you the most about your first day of training?
So when I got to the House of Champions, my first day was essentially all rolls. That's all we did was front roll, left arm, right arm, back roll, dive roll. And if you think that rolling on top of your head is easy, it is very much not easy. It took me about a month to get past my rolls, but basics are so important. And that was the big eye opener for me when I started training was that basics are just so important to what we do.
Now, did you ever? You obviously, I don't think you're quite old enough for it, but since it's been on like the network and Peacock, have you gone back and watched the Tough Enough series?
I haven't really sat down and watched Tough Enough. I know I saw old clips back
Yeah,
when it was like on TV when I was itty bitty. But
right.
I remember when I started training, my dad showed me the Triple H when he walked down the line and was talking to all the guys and took the bump.
Yeah, that was one of the shows kind of growing up for me. I'm like, yeah, that don't look. I mean, that was fine for me. Where I was like, yeah, that don't look as easy as you think it is. Because definitely, and even back in that era, where the ring, especially in the early '90s, if you go back and watch anything from way back when until I'd say probably when Vince started performing, and a lot of the guys will say that that ring had no give. Like, just watch some of those matches from the Attitude Era, and just I'm like, oh, I just watching that stuff now, just I can't imagine.
Mm, same. It like, and I think it's very stiff now.
Yeah.
I can only imagine
Well,
how bad it was back then.
right. Well, and that's what's funny because they were like, God, it only took the boss getting involved to kind of soften the ring just a little bit for him. And sure enough, that's how it works out. But again, so all right, man, you started your training, and how long for you guys? Obviously, every training school is different. Everybody has different lengths. How long was it before you actually had your first real match in front of people?
So the HOC is it's different from a lot of schools, from what I've heard at least. It's very at your own pace. So I had my first match in front of people in February in a first round match for the inaugural HOC championship against Big Boy Patty, who I see him as essentially my professional wrestling older brother. But it meant so much for him to be my first ever opponent. Um, and then from there, it's just every month at the student shows, I would have another match, and it's all led to Iowa being the official debut.
Now, when you got the call to come to Iowa, man, what was running through your head? Because again, this is one of the biggest shows that we have in Iowa all year. A lot of us people call it our WrestleMania because again, it's a whole weekend thing. I mean, a lot of us get there Thursday. I know some people even get there Wednesday, but for the most part, we're there Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and yeah, it's just a really big show. The venue there is a lot of fun. So when you finally got the call and you said, "Hey, how would you like to face, Matty Star, somebody that, like you said, have been familiar with your entire life," what was that feeling like for you?
I don't think it really hit me at first, you know. It took a while to like mellow out, especially reading that laundry list of legends that are going to be at this event. It took a while to really click in my head, wait, this is actually happening. And especially getting to do it against Matty, which I love him. I know everything he's done, but I love him at the end of the day.
And you just mentioned the laundry list of legends. I'm gonna go ahead and read off some of these names we got coming here. And of course, you can't have a Hall of Fame weekend without Gerald Briscoe. Jerry's gonna be back in action again. Joe Malenko, Jim Miller, Wes Briscoe, Shelton Benjamin, Jim Brunzell, the legendary Tony Schiavone is gonna be in the house. Art Anderson's making his long trek over to Waterloo. Dan Gable is, of course, going to be there this weekend. Tito Santana, the grappler. We have Mark Henry, Conrad Thompson, Jazz, JBL, Baron Von Roski, Les Thatcher, Bill DeMont. I mean, the list just goes on and on. Brock Anderson is going to be there. One of the matches that I'm sure you saw advertised too, they're doing
Yes, sir.
Brock Anderson versus Wes Briscoe with each of their dads in their corners. They'll talk about a long list of family legacy in that ring.
Mm. It's a very interesting match and very much something to look forward to. Just even
Yeah.
like being a part of the event, I still want to watch that match.
Well, and hopefully it'll be at a point in the card where you're able to sneak around and kind of get a peek at that one. Because yeah, again, it's a really great venue. I think you're gonna really enjoy it. I I think at most we've probably had 1,000 people there at one point in time. So it's just, again, it's a really, really rad environment. Go out, and if you YouTube search Impact Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame show, you'll kind of get an idea of what the venue looks like, because there's quite a few. We've been doing this, I believe, since, oh God, sometime in the 90s, I think it started. And then I've been going to this.
Mind if I touch on that actually?
Yeah.
My father, I remember he was refer on one of your guys' shows. I forget what year, but I remember it was old enough that I could like slightly remember.
I think he said 2011 was the one that he was on. I think
so.
I started going in 2012, so I had just missed your dad by a year, because then he said he got signed the next year. So yeah, I think I just missed him when I started making it a yearly tradition for me to go. But yeah, I've been going since 2012, and the great thing about this, and hopefully you and your dad will see it, is it's one of those events that for us we all just keep coming back to, and it's always a big family reunion. Again, there's a big, I know for guys like you, I think Saturday there's basically an all-day training seminar that I'm assuming you're going to be a part of as well. That looks like it's got quite a few guest trainers, which I think is going to be really cool for you guys.
Very much so. It's going to be a great opportunity to learn from those names and pick their brain, sit under that learning tree, and get even better and prepare just that little bit more for Matty.
What were your feelings like going through your first match in front of like people? Obviously, it's a lot different than just going in front of your coaches and your fellow classmates. What was that first time you stepped through the curtain, your music hits? What was that feeling like for you?
So panic. Not quite panic, but excitement, I guess would be the word to describe it. It was very exciting. It was a moment that I had been grinding for about 7 months at that point. It had been a moment I'd been grinding for 16 years at that point. Just nonstop putting in work day in, day out, sacrificing my body just to make it to that match. And I went in and killed it. And I'm forever grateful that I was able to have that match. I'm forever grateful for the HOC, forever grateful for my dad, just to have this opportunity to do what I love at this level.
Now, with your dad being a referee, obviously he's on the road all the time. Was there ever any, hesitation on his part or even your mom's part about you wanting to get into the pro wrestling business? Because you guys are gone so much.
So from what I remember, back in 2022, I was starting to mention to him how I wanted to train. And he said he wanted to essentially have me wait. Maybe he'd start teaching me some of the other stuff, but he'd have me wait until I was 18 through college. And then I kept pushing. And then the HOC opened, and we found that and realized how good of a place it was. And there was no better time to start than then.
So yeah, so for the most part, so basically there was no hesitation on mom and dad's part then to be full go.
They're my biggest supporters. All my aunts and uncles are my biggest supporters. My girlfriend, my grandparents. I have a whole support system of love.
Now, another thing I love to ask all of our guests is, and it's the answers to this always vary, and that's why I love asking it. Who's on your Mount Rushmore of pro wrestlers?
My Mount Rushmore. That is a great question.
Well, and I love asking it because everybody's different, and that's what I love. That's why I love asking it.
If we're talking about my personal Mount Rushmore and what made me love professional wrestling, this is going to be a very much a young person answer. I'm going to do my personal Mount Rushmore and then my historical Mount Rushmore. I'm going to answer in two parts. If we're talking personal, like what made me love this, I'd say Finn Balor, CM Punk. Gotta think about it. Dang. Finn Balor, CM Punk, Cody Rhodes, and Seth Rollins is my personal. But if we're talking historical, like their impact, I had to say Sean, Stone Cold, Hogan. It's a dang. Sean, Hogan, Stone Cold, and Brett.
There you go. Yep, that's.
I'd
I
say
mean,
are my personal
you
historical.
definitely can't go wrong with any of those. I mean, people can say what they want about Hogan, but he has had such a massive impact on professional wrestling. And yeah, mine would pretty for the most part will go the same way yours go. Like I'll have Sean, I'll have Brett. I can always go back and forth between Stone Cold and The Rock, and then I would even rotate maybe between
I didn't even
AJ
think
Styles.
about that.
Yeah, I would even rotate maybe between AJ Styles and Cody Rhodes because I've been a huge AJ fan since his time in TNA. He was always that one guy that I told people I'm worried about what he would do if he went to WWE because I was always worried about how they would use him and how they would view him. And the run that he's been on ever since he's got there, has, no pun intended, has been phenomenal. Like he's been one of the few guys that's been able to cross over and just show that he truly is that good.
Because it's undeniable
Yeah,
with him.
Well, and that's why it's fun too. Like as his career is starting to wind down a little bit, him getting these shots with Cody and all that, it's been a lot of fun to see too. Because I'm sure AJ doesn't have a whole lot of time left on his wrestling calendar for sure. So, all right, again, you haven't had very many matches, so I'm not going to ask you kind of like what your favorite match is that you've been a part of. But what's your?
Dude, that's not a bad question.
All right, well, yeah, since you've had one a month since you've been wrestling, let's go ahead and go with it then. What's been your favorite match so far?
So far, my favorite match was a dark match that I had. It was at Boca Raton Championship Wrestling. It was a dark match. It was a tag match between my coach and one of my friends, Casey Rocker, and me and my other friend, Patty, who I mentioned earlier. It was so much fun. It was exhilarating. It was every single word that you can describe a match.
Now, okay, we got that match out of the way. What's been your favorite match that you can always go back and watch as a fan? Like, say somebody asks your Mount Rushmore of matches, what are you telling them to go watch?
We're talking about Mount Rushmore. Stuff that I've always loved to watch was
Yeah.
Money in the Bank 2011, CM Punk, John Cena,
Yep.
of course.
Yep.
Hell in the Cell 2022, Cody and Seth. I think it was 2022.
Yeah, yep.
You could just ask my mom. She remembers me going from the living room in
my
her bedroom.
my wife and I did the same thing. My wife's not like really a wrestling fan. She grew up watching it, but every now and then you can get her to look up at the screen and she'll see something go, oh. And when Cody took off his jacket, we both did, oh, because you heard about it all weekend that he tore his pec or whatever. And yeah, he takes it off and you see that hue. It's like, oh, dude. And then especially there's one part in that matchup, I think Seth has the kendo stick and he's like driving
yeah,
it deep.
he's gnashing it in there.
Like it was just chef's kiss.
Those two, triple threat WrestleMania 39. Was it Drew McIntyre? Drew McIntyre. Yeah, it was Drew, Gunther, and Sheamus, I think.
Yeah, that sounds great.
That's on there. That, and to round it out, Brett versus Owen Hart from God, is it WrestleMania 10?
Yep,
I believe.
Yep.
That
was the opening match from WrestleMania 10.
Yep.
So yeah. Anytime you throw Brett and Owen together, you definitely can't go wrong there. So, so with your dad being a referee, obviously you've gotten a chance to do some really cool things that are associated with that. For you, man, what's been your most favorite thing that you've been able to, see or just be a part of?
We're talking my favorite thing that I've been able to be a part of. Well, a lot of the wrestling events that I've been able to go to through the years, I've been able to go. There's a long while that I had a streak of manias. My first WrestleMania that I went to was Austin, Texas, the first time. Okay. Then it was every year up until New York Mania, and then COVID happened and just shut it down. And I haven't gone since. New York may I remember being a lot of fun and everything around that. I just love New York.
I'm surprised with you being such a big Cody fan, you wouldn't have begged your dad to go to WrestleMania this past year with Cody and all the hype that was surrounding
I
him.
wanted to. I was going to, but school got in the way.
Ah.
Yeah.
So again, you mentioned you're a Punk fan too. How shocked were you at the Survivor Series return for him?
Oh my goodness. It was completely unreal. Never in a million years would have expected that to happen. Like
Right.
the shirt says, it's like hell froze over.
Well, God, I just had something come up. I saw on this day, I think it was either last week or the week before, that he had just returned on Collision like a year ago for AEW. And I'm like,
Mm,
God, if you had told me a year ago when they kicked that off, that Punk a year later would be in WWE, I would have been like, there's no way in hell. Absolutely. And I just
mhm.
remember, again, that was another one of those moments that my wife and I were sitting there on the couch. I had it on and they were going to the end. I'm like, okay, well, that's it. No big deal. That was a fun show. Then all of a sudden you see the light flash and even my wife popped her head up and said, holy shit. And then unfortunately for Drew McIntyre, he's just been an absolute thorn in Drew's side here for the last however long.
It's been great.
Yeah, it's been this when those two can finally get locked up and get in a full story, full match, it's gonna be just absolutely phenomenal.
Big agree.
So, all right, as you've been doing your trading and as you've been going from show to show, obviously you guys are spending a lot of time in the car. What are some of the things you guys are doing to pass the time? Obviously, music, podcasts. What are you guys doing to pass the time?
A lot of times, me and Dad like listening to Jim Cornette's podcast, which has some of the greatest wrestling knowledge that I've ever heard just dropped like that. There's that. Like sitting down and listening to when we're not in the car. I know you said in the car, but when we're not in the car watching freaking what's it called? Dark Side of the Ring is a lot of fun. When we are in the car, just telling stories, especially if it's a car with like me, Casey, one of my friends, Patty, one of my other friends, and Dad, just telling stories, talking the whole way. Stories are my favorite part of this business, and they always will be.
And that's the cool thing about what we have like available at our fingertips. You know, we just with all the avenues that there are to create content, we have so many different wrestling podcasts. Like who would have thought back in the day, guys like Jim Cornette, Eric Bischoff, Jim Ross, all these guys would have these podcasts, Bruce Pritchard, even that would have these podcasts that we can actually listen to all these wonderful stories. I mean, it's again, everybody says they love audiobooks, but it's like, well, we're getting basically weekly audio books out of all these because they're going back and doing timeline events, and yeah, it's just kind of wild, man.
hmm There's this one segment that Jim Cornette does that I love. It's the guest the program segment where his partner on the podcast he has like a stack of programs next to him and he'll just pick one out and it's all stuff like the 70s, 60s, whatever. And he'll read out the card and Jim has to guess the year, the date, the time, and the location. It's a lot of fun and there's a lot of wrestling history that you're like, okay, what's this? Da, 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 da. Okay, what's that? Da, 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 and you just go down a rabbit hole of history. It's
Sure,
great.
sure. They do
It's a lot
something
of
like
fun.
that. They do something similar to that on the podcast Charting the Territories. I had the author Al Getz on last week, and they do kind of something similar to that where he'll do a weekly quiz show and it's a lot of again territory
Nice.
related. So if you're a fan of territory wrestling, definitely give it a check before you come to Waterloo because Al's getting
I will have to
inducted
check
in.
that out.
Yeah, it's called Charting the Territories. Go ahead and check it out because I find
I'm gonna write
growing
that
up
down.
I found growing up or as a wrestling fan, the more you learn about the history, like the territories were such an interesting time frame. Like just the fact that, you could have Ted DiBiase in Minnesota being something completely different, go down to Florida and be a completely different character.
And it's some of the greatest stories that I've ever
Yeah.
seen in professional
Yep.
wrestling going on at the same time.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Never fails.
Absolutely. Now, when you guys are done for your show, I feel like everybody likes to have a go-to stop that they like to hit. What is your guys' go-to, whether it be place to eat or just go-to pit stop after a show's done?
Waffle House. Every single time. Waffle House. I love me some House. Never will not love me some Waffle House.
Now I
It's the
see
greatest
I see the chair there in the background. Have you collected the Mania chairs every year that you've gone to Mania like a lot of people do?
That's not my chair. That's my dad's.
Okay. Okay.
But for the most part, he has actually.
That's
He's gotten, I believe, mostly every year, if I
okay.
remember correctly.
Okay. Right on. Right on. All right. So I'm gonna do some kind of rapid fire, quick questions here for you. What's your favorite movie?
Got you. Favorite movie? Deadpool 2.
What is one thing that you like
Deadpool 2.
collecting that might surprise people? Like comic books, action figures.
Action figures.
Okay.
Action figures and comic books, both of them.
Nice, nice. So like I said, I knew your dad was into comic books, so I sent him those two stores there in Waterloo that when you guys are up here, we'll have to go and check those stores out when we're in
Yes, sir.
Waterloo. So do you have a dream opponent that you would love to face?
Dream opponent. A lot of different people. I guess easiest answer is whoever is brave enough to step up.
Ooh, there you go. There you go. Have you done any tape study yet on Matty? Because the beautiful thing about Matty being in this for so long, there's a lot of tape out there on him. I mean, you can just type in Matty Star on YouTube. You'll come up with quite a bit of match footage. Have you done any tape study on him?
No, not going to give away much, but I certainly have.
Attaboy. Because yeah, I'm pretty sure, like I said, you can even find some from this, Hall of Fame weekend as well. So who has been obviously with you being going to training school, I'm sure you guys get like guest seminars and everything like that. So far, out of all the guest seminars that you've been able to be a part of, who's been your most favorite guest that you were involved with?
So it was a lot of fun to sit down and listen to Zach Ryder, Matt Cardona. He did his first seminar with the Hawk, I think about a month ago now. And that was a lot of fun to sit down and listen to a lot of the money-making side of this business and learn a lot of that.
And you want to talk about a guy that completely reinvented himself from his WWE release. And it's like, I love hearing the story about him getting released and what has kind of come about. He was even at the point where he was going to call them when they were making all those releases and say, "Hey, are you sure I'm not on this list?" And that very next day, he had his PWT store ready to go. Like, this dude is a merchandising genius. Like, I know he's even said he's made more money off of merchandise at shows than he has on his actual booking.
Very much so. He has such a brilliant mind for merchandising and marketing and reinventing in everything in this business, even the in-ring.
Now, you guys were kind of trying to come up with, your characters and everything like that. Was there anything, specific that you wanted to, get across, or how hard was it really for you guys to come up with your persona?
Not very, because I'm just me. At the end of the day, my persona is me. And that's the easiest. That's the great part about it, because as a person, have a very big heart and a very full heart and a very loving heart. And that's what I want to come across in ring, is my heart and my soul and my passion for everything that I put my mind to, everything that I set my mind to, I will achieve. And I'll be damned if I don't.
What's the best piece of advice you've received?
Best piece of advice I've ever received? Slow down. Slow down, let everything mellow, soak everything in.
Now, is that what you would tell somebody, say they're walking into the HOC on their very first day? Is that something you would tell them as well?
Very much so. Very much so. To anyone starting out, slow down, take your time. It doesn't come fast, but when it happens, it will be fast. And you just want to make sure you slow down and you soak it in every single moment. When you go through that curtain, soak it in like it's the first time you've gone through it.
Now, kind of back to your training, man, was there anything that I guess really surprised you about it? Like, obviously, you've been up close and personal to professional wrestling a lot more than probably some of these guys have. Was there anything that really surprised you by it?
Hitting the mat hurts. Because you see all these guys doing it, and they just up, bang, 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 and it looks like it. If they're just doing it, and you don't realize how much it really sucks until you do it. Like you can talk all the crap you want behind the screen, but until you actually hit the mat, it'll change you.
All right, I'm going to give you a little bit of time here. Again, you got Matty Star coming up here less than a month in Waterloo, Iowa at the Impact Pro Wrestling Show here. Again, get your tickets now. Head over to the George Troyos Luthes Hall of Fame Facebook page for ticket information. I'm going to give you a little chance once you show us what you got and cut a little promo on our boy Matty here.
So, as you know, like I mentioned, and a lot of the viewers will remember, I've known Matty for years. And if there's one thing that I do know about Matty, it's that this is going to be a climb. This is going to be a struggle. This is going to be a fight. This is going to be a war. A war between two people who've known each other for over a decade. And this moment to me means more than anything, because it's 16 years in the making. 16 years of my life, 16 years of my father's life, about a year of my trainer's lives. It's been that climb, that grind, that everything has led to that moment, July 20th, when me and Matty stare at each other in the eyes, middle of the ring, crowds roaring. That moment right there means everything to me, because it's what I've strived for. It's what I've fought for. It's what I've clawed for. That right there is me. That right there, that ring is me. I am a wrestler at the end of the day, and I want to show everyone that, not even that, I want to show Matty that this new dog can teach an old dog some new tricks, because I am the king of the next generation.
All right, there you have it, guys. Rhys Maddox is coming your way July 20th in Waterloo, Iowa. It's going to be a great, great weekend. Rhys, why don't you tell everybody what your next couple bookings before Waterloo are, because I'm sure you guys got some upcoming shows here.
Well, as of right now, Monday, tomorrow night, so Tuesday, June 24th, Tuesday, June 25th, I face DMC, if any of you that don't know, and GMJ in an HOC student show match in a three-way. And I need to prove myself. I won last month's match. I'm not going to tell you how, but I won it. At the end of the day, a win is a win. A win is a win. I'm going to prove that a win is a win when I shut George up, when I shut DMC up, and when I win again tomorrow, Tuesday, June 25th, HOC at the Hawk Pro live on YouTube, 7 p.m. my time, so about 6-ish your time.
All right, and then again, you can check Rhys out at July 20th in Waterloo, Iowa for Impact Pro Wrestling. Real quick, too, tell people where they can follow you at on social media.
Yes, sir. I pretty much on every social media am Rhys Maddox 2GK. That is Rhys Maddox 2GK. All one word.
All right, there you have it, guys. Rhys Maddox coming our way against Matty Star, July 20th, Impact Pro Wrestling. Going to be an absolutely awesome time. Thank you all again for joining us on another edition of Shotgun Wrestling Radio. We're going to be back next week with another episode. And that episode next week, we are going to have Tony Gurria joining us next week. So I'm looking forward to getting him on the pod here next week, as he's been one who's been coming to the Hall of Fame weekend for quite some time now, too. So until next time, we will see you right here on the World Wide Web.